Final Fantasy, the granddaddy of all RPGs. Back in 1987, RPGs looked like this. But then this new hotness came onto the scene. Look at those graphics, swinging sword, casting smelly spells, it was nuts! And launched a struggling company from the brink of bankruptcy to the powerhouse they are today. Now, I've never played the original NES game, and, well, I never intend to. From the horrible bugs, spells not working, or doing the exact opposite of what they're supposed to do, I'm just gonna eat that experience right into the trash can. I'm gonna play the PSP version. I chose that one after reading up all the reviews. People said that the PSP version was the definitive version next to the NES original one, and I'm not playing that one, so moving on. Now, I don't have a lot of history with Final Fantasy 1. I had Final Fantasy 1 and 2 Dawn of Souls for the GBA, but I hardly touched Final Fantasy 1. I mostly played Final Fantasy 2. I usually got to the point where you get the boat, I got lost, and then I abandoned that game like the heap of trash I thought it was. Now, do I still think this game is a big pile of smelly poo-poo and just a lazy port designed to sell based off nostalgia factor alone? Yes. Yes, I do. But before I jump into why I think this game is poo-poo, let me give you a quick spoiler warning. I'm sure most of you don't care, but for the 12 of you who do, I did not like my time with Final Fantasy 1. I even tried playing the different ports and they were quite literally the same exact game, just with a different coat of paint. And to be frank, the PSP version was the best one I played. Not by much, mind you, but enough for me to say that I also think, much like many people, that this is the definitive version to play if you are going to play Final Fantasy 1. Or you can play the classic NES one if you're really a fan of torturing yourself. So let's just jump into it, shall we? Booting up a new game, we have 4 party members and a couple different classes for them. Warrior, Thief, Monk, Black Mage, White Mage, and Red Mage. Each have their own quirks. The Warrior is the best single target damage dealer in the game. Thieves are just a weaker version of the Warrior, and the Monk is only good if you don't feel like buying gear for your characters. Black Mage mostly uses elemental damaging spells until he becomes a buff butt. We'll get to that later. White Mage keeps your party hardy and healthy, and Red Mage is just like me, mediocre at just about everything. Now, the usual setup looks like this. However, I want to spice things up a little bit and go with a monk. Now it's time for us to give our heroes names. Like, comment, and subscribe. What an original joke I have made. They will laugh at my cunning and wit. Nah, now let's meet our real heroes. Steve, Steven, Steph, and Keith. They told me not to pick favorites, and I absolutely have no favorites whatsoever. Our game begins telling us that the world is going sideways. The 4 crystals that control the natural elements have gone out. There are no winds, but the seas are ravaging, which makes no sense whatsoever. The volcanoes are doing something. Look at that volcano. Look at that eruption. The devastation's immense. The game starts you off right in front of the Kingdom of Cornelius, so naturally I head and start talking to some NPCs who really don't say anything of value. But when I head to the castle, I notice something. Something that just breaks the illusion of this entire game. This guard is dumbfounded that we have the crystals. Are we the Warriors of Light? Same with this guard. And this guard. Why do you all say the exact same thing?
This game costs $50 at launch.
I'll tell you why. They did not try to write any new dialogue in this. The writers in this game were so lazy that they refused to write a separate line of dialogue. We got some lovely, uncanny twin NPCs in this game. And they're in every single town in the game. So much for this game being a celebration of the game that saved our company. What are we gonna do to show our respect for it? Nothing. We're gonna do nothing. Good job, Square. This is the first town of the game. This is supposed to sell you on your big Final Fantasy adventure. And then they just do this. This is so lazy. This uncanny twin situation with these NPCs made me not want to talk to them. And guess what? That bites me in the ass later. We'll get there, though. Let's just keep moving on. So we head to the castle, we meet the king. No name, just the king. Okay. We flash our crystals, and the king promises to restore an old bridge if we save his daughter. Why he doesn't just storm Garland's castle with more knights than he can handle is beyond me, but whatever. This is the nameless king, after all. We must respect his wishes. The plot demands so. Anyway, let's head back into town and get ourselves some gear and some magic. Now's actually a good time for me to bring up the magic system in this game. To be 100% honest, I don't know how I feel about it. You have to purchase magic just as you would any sort of equipment for your characters. You could argue that you're trying to find the right balance between gear and magic, but here's the thing, magic is so vastly more expensive than any gear you're ever going to purchase. You also can't purchase magic if your spellcaster isn't a high enough level to cast that magic. And towards the end of the game, that actually kind of bit me in the ass. Again, I will talk about it when we get there. Just keep that in mind. And my counter argument for you trying to strike the right balance of gear and magic, it just kind of came off as a grind fest instead of a balancing act. I would say probably about 9 times out of 10, whenever I went to a new town, I always bought magic over gear, just because I knew I would find gear in whatever dungeon I was about to head into. And on the note of shopkeepers, aren't we supposed to be the warriors of light? Yet we have to purchase everything. Here we are trying to fulfill some prophecy, and this guy's charging me 40,000 gil for magic? I understand if the player was handed everything, there'd be no sense of accomplishment, but guess what, guys? There's no sense of accomplishment anyway. Couldn't there have been just one shopkeeper that's like, oh, you're the warriors of light? Here's a lovely discount. But no, it's full price, every time, everywhere. At least at the start of the game, it's generous enough to make sure that my characters are fully equipped. I got some spells and I even have some items. So let's go ahead and head off to Garland. And on our way over there, we might as well go ahead and talk about combat. This is about as traditional as JRPG as you can get. You pick your character's action, then you hope to every god, both real and imaginary, that they go in the order you want them to go into. For example, I imagine Steven, my monk, is going to be much faster than any person in my team. But it turns out, Steph is faster. Sometimes. Sometimes Keith is faster. I never truly understood my team's turn orders because it was different just about every single time I entered combat. This became especially frustrating in later boss fights when I thought my turn order was going to be the exact same, but it was completely different. Anyway, let's get back to where we were. For now, I decided to level up a little bit. Not much, just to level 3 and make my way the only way I can. North towards Garland, and there he is! He's actually pretty badass. This is the first taste of bosses in the game, so I went into this battle kind of excited. He taunts us, and I proceed to kill him in 3 turns and only took 3 damage the whole fight. Huh. I remember this fight being a little harder back when I played it on the GBA port, but okay. I guess level 3 was too high. But we saved the king's daughter and he rebuilds the bridge, which raises some questions. Question 1, are all 4 of the Warriors of Light from the Kingdom of Cornelia? Question 2, were all the crystals already on the continent in the first place? Question 3, why the hell did the king make us go save his daughter when the world is dying? You selfish prick. Spoiler alert, they don't tell you the answer to any of those questions. Moving on. So we watched this with some of my favorite music in the entire game. Not a joke, I love the Final Fantasy theme, and we have our world to explore. Now I'm gonna level with you. Something about me as a player, I hate open world games. I'm okay with playing a hallway as long as the hallway is interesting. Final Fantasy 13, but we'll get there. I am very much okay with a linear story. I don't like open world games because that many options leads me to what I like to call analysis paralysis, where I don't know what the hell I'm supposed to do, and I get a little nervous. So now we have our world to explore. Heading off to the next town, they're being harassed by some pirates, and they're just kind of chilling there. This town is in such distress. Look at this person. He looks so sad. Look at that building that's not on fire. Listen to this calm, relaxing music to this town that's in turmoil. Really setting the mood there. So naturally, we fight these pirates and they just give you their ship. Alright. Cool. I didn't skip anything here, by the way. Things just go from 0 to 100 real quick. However, after you defeat the pirates, something in town changes. You see, when you first come in here, there's only about 2 or 3 NPCs, but after you defeat the pirates, the place gets flooded with them. Look at this blue-haired guy who says the exact same thing as his 4 frickin' twin brothers over there. That was the final nail in the coffin, by the way. I stopped talking to NPCs after I realized that the writers just didn't care. I don't remember getting the ship this quickly. We're at the first 20 minutes of the game. Also, this is when the world gets much larger, and as a kid, this is usually when I got lost and I stopped playing. And history kind of repeated itself because I got lost a couple times. We'll get there though. Originally I was going to explain every single dumb scenario in detail, but I didn't want this video to go on for half an hour, so I'm just going to hit you with the Spark Notes version of everything. Okay, so we head south to the Elf City where it turns out the prince has been asleep for 500 years. My boy, it's time for you to take him back and shoot him Old Yeller style. You know how much shit changes in 500 years? You know what was happening in America 500 years ago? We were shitting in the streets. If you were to show them a cell phone, they'd think there's a tiny person in there and they'd burn you at the stake like a witch. Anyway, in order to go wake up the elf prince, you gotta go fight this guy, the Dark Elf King, and he gives you a glass eye after you beat him, and you go give it to this woman who gives you a jolt potion that wakes up the sleeping prince. The sleeping prince then gives you a key to a storage unit in the Kingdom of Cornelia. Don't ask me why he has it, I have no earthly clue. To get some blasting powder to go give it to a dwarf. Dwarf blows up a canal. I would have had no earthly clue what the hell I was doing if it wasn't for this woman. They introduced her, I don't know in which version of the game, but god bless her. She is so handy for the first half of the game. She doesn't help you during the second half because she just doesn't tell you where to go. And that would have come in real freaking handy if she would have told me where the fuck the caravan was. But we'll get there, I promise. So now that we have all of that, we can head off to the Earth Cave. And this is honestly where I mentally checked out. Because this hallway seems inconspicuous, right? Joke's on me! It took me over 15 minutes to walk 15 steps because there was a new encounter on every single tile. Now's a good time for me to talk about one of the design choices that I just do not understand. Trap tiles. These trap tiles are scripted encounters. They're usually right next to a chest, and the first time I actually didn't notice it. You fight these mind flayer looking fellas, and they slap you so hard, you wonder what you did to deserve Daddy's belt. I just want the chest, man. Now, you would think when you've triggered these tiles, you're good. They're not going to show up again. But nope, these never go away, which really grinds my gears, especially at one point later on in the game, and I promise, again, we're going to get to it when we get to it. Sometimes this is actually really useful. In this example, the red cave, you fight this red dragon that gives you 4,000 gold. You bet your bottom dollar that I grinded on that guy for about 5 minutes, and I never had gold issues at that point. But this hall in the Earth Cave, fuck this hallway. This was such a huge waste of time, and this is the third worst thing in the game. We still got 2 things that beat this thing out. Anyway, in the Earth Cave, you get a ruby. Why do we need a ruby? Well, we gotta give it to this guy who's blocking our path. I don't know why we just don't cut him down Monty Python style. We're the Warriors of Light, bitch. Get out of the way. But after we give him that, we find our first big boss of the game, the Lich. Now, I'm pretty confident in fighting the Lich because that Earth Cave hallway leveled me up probably about 3 to 4 times with all those forced encounters. So, let's do this! Oh no. Oh boy. Wow. Yep. That's a thing that happens in this game. Welcome to what I like to call level checking. Now, what's a level check? Oh, my sweet summer naive child, let me tell you. But first, I have to tell you how level ups work in this game. Level ups give you a random amount of stat increases. Usually your HP goes up anywhere between 15 to 25. That's usually the sweet spot. That's usually about where all my level ups got me. And then you get probably 1 or 2 of your stat bonuses, like strength, magic, whatever. Sometimes these levels are awesome, where your character gets like 35 HP and then like 1 of all of their stats. Sometimes you get those level ups that make you want to drown yourself when your black mage only gets 3 HP. Come on, Keith! And a level check is just to make sure that your characters are high enough that you can survive the one-shotting AoE move. That's a level check. Moving on. Luckily, we beat him and we light up our first crystal, the Earth Crystal. Now the planet can start healing, is what I would say, but the geography of this game does not change in the slightest besides when you blow up a canal. Literally nothing changes. Boy, do I feel accomplished. Now after that, we go to this city where you find this Bukkake Circle of Mages. They tell you little tidbits of the prophecy and the Fiends of Chaos. I only know this because I got lost and I eventually had to talk to them. Remember when I said I stopped talking to NPCs? Well, it's time for that mentality to bite me in the ass. Now, look at all of these mages. Tell me, which one do you think gives me the plot crucial item to continue my quest? Did you think it was this one? Get fucked, idiot. No, it's this one! You would imagine the one that looks different, gives you what you need, but no, guess who this guy is? He's the one that made the prophecy. Oh boy, I'm so glad I met you. Tell me all the deep plot in this game that came out in 1987. No, you gotta go talk to brother cousin number 7 over there and he gives you a canoe. I would be less upset if he looked different than the other members of his retirement cult group over there. Like that one does. Maybe give him a blue hat or something. I don't know. Literally anything. You could argue that I should be talking to everyone, but I don't know. No. I shouldn't need to do that. Talking to NPCs isn't supposed to be mandatory. It's supposed to be a fun little side thing. A great example of this is Undertale. You don't have to talk to a single NPC. You don't. It's just flavor text. Here, some of them are mandatory, and you wouldn't know. You'd have no idea. And for those of you who are saying, go talk to the dancer, Mike. Well, guess what? She didn't tell me to go talk to the guy that's right next to the person who made the prophecy. Thanks for helping, bitch. So I did the only thing I could think of, which was just to go on to GameFAQs. I have no shame. This game can lay on a nice, comfortable bed of bamboo and slowly get impaled over the next week. Moving on. So, we're using the canoe to go to this lovely volcano. Now these lava tiles drain your HP. I guess it's supposed to make the dungeon harder. But at this point, I had so many healing items, I walked over them like the Hall of $1 Million Bala I was. This is also where I abused that trap tile to fight that red dragon, so I literally did not have to worry about money for the rest of the game. The boss here is actually pretty easy. Again, they just hit you with the level check and you proceed to just buff your warrior and kill them. Now remember when I talked about Keith just becoming a buff bot later in the game? Now I think is a good time for me to bring that up. This is how every boss encounter is going to go. My white mage is going to cast heal on my whole party. Keith, who is supposed to be commanding the elements and being a badass, slaying witches and laying bitches, is just becoming a buff bot for my two real damage dealers, Steve and Steven. Now Keith does have a really good purpose in this party, and that is non-boss encounters. Every single late game spell is AoE, so all my regular mob encounters, he just one-shots with his abilities, and that's how I make grinding a huge snorefest. Choose my strongest AoE, hit all the mobs, get some EXP, get to the boss, use some buffs, heal my party, and I slap them. I tried using magic on some of these later bosses, but the amount of damage Keith did was so pitiful compared to what Steve and Steven were doing, it just wasn't worth my time anymore. Buffing Steve's attack did more damage than my strongest spell that the bosses were actually supposed to be weak to. I can't stress how sad that is for me. I thought I was going to have to try and find some sort of balance between buffing my characters and healing them with Steph. But no, Steph just used her AoE heal, and then Keith did all the buffing. That's so lame. I wanted Keith to actually do damage to the bosses. So anyway, we slap the boss, we get the fire crystal. I don't know what it did. Probably just made this volcano less volcano-y. They don't really tell you. And afterwards, we find ourselves in the second worst part of the game. I don't want to call this a puzzle. I'm going to call this a test of my patience. This freaking NPC walking, wasting my time bullshit. I guess I can talk about why this is so stupid. When you're in town and you run into an NPC and there's a narrow hallway and there's only one actual tile that you can walk through, if you run into an NPC, eventually they're going to move out of your way, right? Cool. It's a little whatever. It doesn't take that much time. But this place, these assholes just sit here like those fuckers at Disneyland. They just sit in the middle of Main Street just chatting away when there's no room for you to walk. You just have to, excuse me, sir. But no, you can't even weasel your way through these guys. There's little tiles you can move, but those tiles are trap encounters. So you either have to fight an encounter, or you have to sit here and wait for this fucker to move, and you can't be in their way. They will sit there and stare you down until you both starve to death. Who made this puzzle? Was it this guy? I bet it was this guy. No, it was him. You win this time tomorrow, but I'm watching you. Stop ruining Kingdom Hearts. Just stop. You've done enough damage. Alright, so we're 2 crystals down, and I somehow managed to get out of that god-awful walking puzzle. And now we've made our way to the ice cave, where we get this beautiful item named the Levy Stone. This gives you access to the airship. Now, I didn't know how to get the airship. I just happened to be walking into the desert, and it just magically showed up. Huh, neat. I was actually rewarded for exploring. Okay, I'll give that one to you, game. Well done. I imagine some people probably got lost. I didn't. I was just walking around, because I was like, what do I do now? But, cool. Now this airship. Papa mother truckin' bless this airship. Not only does it move super fast, you cannot get random encounters while you're here. Oh my god, nut. So what happened next was the coolest part of the game for me. I know I've ragged on this game a lot up to this point, but this was legitimately the one really big redeeming factor for me. So I saw this tower and I was like, why not? So I went into it, I did some thing, and I got a rat's tail. I don't know what it does. I don't know how that's a plot crucial item. So then I continued to go around from place to place. I fought a boss that I definitely shouldn't have fought, got my ass kicked. But eventually, I found this guy, Bahamut, King of the Dragons. What happened next blew my freaking mind. Now, I knew that there was a way for you to, for lack of a better word, promote your heroes. Like, you can get an upgraded version of their class. I just didn't know how to do it. I don't even know if this was required, but it was something that I did. This was honestly the coolest part of the playthrough, because this happened completely by accident. I felt like such a badass, and there are certain spells that the Black Mage and White Mage cannot use. You have to get the promotion. I made my peace with knowing I was probably never going to use those spells. But unfortunately, our good times come to an end with the worst part of the game. It was time for us to get the third crystal, and to do that, we have to save a fairy from some caravan. If someone told me where the fuck the caravan was, I wouldn't have had any issue. This was by far the worst experience of the game this far, and that's saying a lot considering those Disneyland Lane motherfuckers I was talking about earlier. The caravan we need to find is on a hidden tile in the desert. Literally no one told me where the hell the caravan was. This pirate over here tells me that he sold the ferry to the caravan, but he doesn't tell me where the hell the caravan was. So guess what? I'm gonna save you some time. At least if you're playing the PSP version, it's right here. Look at this little circle. Oh, isn't that
inconspicuous?
Look at that caravan that's over there. Oh my god. And we also have to spend 40,000 gil. I'll slit your throat, motherfucker. Give me the ferry. Anyway, we take that ferry back over here and we get an item that allows us to breathe underwater. We go kill the fiend, easy peasy, and I leave, and yet I get lost yet again. I thought after clearing that crystal, I was all good. Nope. This one's on me though. Instead of hanging a right to go talk to some boring mermaids and go find a Rosetta Stone, which literally no NPC told me about, I went straight. I was stuck for yet again about an hour until finally I decided to look up a walkthrough. I don't remember a single NPC telling me that I needed to go find a Rosetta Stone. And why I need that Rosetta Stone is the dumbest thing I could think of. So we take that Rosetta Stone to this town and we talk to this NPC, who actually looks different than the other ones. Oh my god, they're learning. Anyway, we go talk to this guy and he's like, oh, cool, the Rosetta Stone. Here's an ancient language to go talk to these mystic guys. All right, you good? You cool? You understand the language? Awesome. We now understand an ancient language that's been lost for Lord knows how long. Keeping on the track of things going from 0 to 100 real quick. With us knowing this ancient language, we head over to this town where we talk to everybody because Lord knows that they're not going to tell me who I'm supposed to talk to, and eventually one of them tells me about a flying fortress, so we head up there and we're good to go. While we're at the flying fortress, 3 important things happen here. The first thing that happens is I pick up an item that I assume is going to allow me to make a weapon. Now, I assume that these people also have no imagination and dwarves are natural forgers, so I'm going to go to the dwarves and figure out if I can get something from there. The second thing that happens is I talk to this thing like, hey, Garland's castle. Remember Garland? He's the guy that we beat the shit out of? Well, his castle's in the middle of everything. Foreshadowing. This game's actually telling me where to go. It's learning. Third thing that happens is we fight the boss. He's super easy. We get the final crystal. We're good to go. All right, let's go to where the game told us to go. Garland's old castle. Now that we're actually in Garland's castle, something interesting happens to me. This guy that you see weaseling his way to the back, I thought that was where the plot was going to happen. No, it turns out that this is an entirely optional area. The gimmick of this area is you sacrifice parts of your command menu in order to give yourself an allotted amount of time to solve a puzzle. I failed it like 3 times in a row, so I was like, I'm good. Turns out you're supposed to touch this ball. Once you touch it, it sends you 2,000 years in the past. I don't know why this plot needed time travel. It was already stupid enough as it was, but time travel's in here now. Whatever. Now this is probably the longest dungeon in the game. Luckily I had plenty of healing items to get me through. And you have to refight all 4 fiends again. Now instead of using those fancy sprites when you fight them the first time, they're reduced to trap tiles. And they have the same exact properties of every trap tile that came before them. Why would they do that? The fiends have these badass sprites that you can use to be like a gatekeeper. Instead, they're reduced to the same exact trap tiles as the first dungeon in the game with the Mind Flayer guys. Anyway, we fight all of them and we find Chaos, who's the final boss of the game. Now this guy has about 4 or 5 level checks, and unfortunately, I got my ass kicked. I fought him about 3 times before I realized I should probably go grab an ability that I didn't have access to before. Remember when I said that certain spells are only available to either certain classes or you have to reach the level requirement for them? Well, unfortunately, I wasn't a high enough level to actually get the full life ability. At this point in the game, I was using life, which revives your character, but they only have 1 HP. Full life revives them with max HP. I don't think I need to tell you how amazing that is. So I had to backtrack all the way through the final dungeon, go get the full life ability, and go all the way back through, so I had to fight the fiends for a 3rd time, and then when I fought Chaos with full life, I wrecked his shit. With Chaos defeated and the time loop breaking, we saved the world! Y'all, this was a test of my patience. There was so much about this game that just shows it was such a lazy port. This game has been remade about half a dozen times at this point. One of the biggest red flags for showing that this is just a lazy port that doesn't even deserve to be called the 20-year celebration of this game was actually the opening cinematic video. This was the opening to the PS1 version. They did literally nothing besides copy and paste it. And if that doesn't scream lazy, then the uncanny NPCs, basic and unchanging combat system, and an outdated story should. I know I ragged on this game a lot. I know that the original game came out in 1987, but this game came out 20 years later. They could have fixed some of these just basic, outdated things. I really did not like this game. But it wasn't all bad. Stumbling into that class promotion was still super cool. I still feel like a badass. The music in this game I actually enjoyed, specifically the ship and airship themes. I really like those. And this is by far the best looking version of Final Fantasy 1. Ultimately, this is just the best version of Final Fantasy 1 to play. Anyway, I'm done talking about this game. Let me know what you guys think. For those of you who played it, did you enjoy Final Fantasy 1? Why or why not? I would love to know. Speaking of enjoyment, watch the Master of Segways work. Hopefully you guys liked the video. If you did, why or why not? I'd love to know. I like constructive criticism as much as the next guy does. This is just the first video on this long journey I'm about to go on, and hopefully you guys join me. With that being said, I'm gonna skedaddle. Hope you all have a stupendous day, and toodaloo.